You know those words, El na refana las, what Moses says when he hears his sister is stricken with tzara'at, this skin affliction. And we know from the Torah that it's a punishment of sorts. But Moses, just as an act of goodness, a kindness, is asking God, El na refana la, please God, please heal her. And so that's the nature of the words. You know, there's a lot of times we gather and lots of folks share these different names. Whether we believe that God actually intervenes or not, or what that prayer might do, there's a lot of folks who will always stand and share that sense of, we want somebody to be better and stronger, hopefully get towards a place of strength and wholeness. For me, I know that healing is different than curing. Sometimes we can find healing even without the cure. But the idea of everybody standing and everybody putting out there that name, there's a power behind that. Because I think what I get to see, I should have wrote this down. What I get to see when you do that, I see acts of grace. I see love and compassion and people wanting to forge a connection, even for people that they don't know so well, but they know they're having a hard time. I'm glad that we get to do that here. I think our world needs us to stand up for one another in that way. And we don't always get to see it, because I think we get too busy, or we feel pressures, or whatever is going on is on our shoulders. And I know that's a lot, but there's a power to standing up for somebody else. And if we're not able to stand, it's the same thing. On the inside, we're standing up and we can call out their name or we say it privately. There's a sense of being there, of showing up, that I think sometimes outside or even inside we miss. Because we're distracted. It's not because we don't want to, but maybe feeling shy or inhibited. You know, in the Torah portion, this is what I did write down. In the Torah portion, we're at the very, very end of this Joseph story. In fact, the end of the whole book of Genesis. So Joseph, of course, is one of the youngest of sons of Jacob. And all of those brothers are hating him. And he's a teenager. No offense to our teenagers. And as an adolescent, he doesn't realize what his words mean to other people. And so they really revile him. They hate him. They want to kill him, but instead they sell him off into slavery. And he has all of these different experiences until at the very, very end of the story, he gets through these experiences. He is second in command of all of the empire of Egypt. And he's second only to Pharaoh, but we're at a point where his father and his siblings, there is a reconciliation. They've all moved to Egypt because there's a famine. But at the end, we see that Jacob is about to die. Joseph's father, his life is coming to an end. And he says, in the text, it says, Jacob lived these 17 years in the land of Egypt. So this is the span of his life, 147 years. Yeah. And then it says, when the time approached for Israel to die, he summoned his son Joseph and said to him, do me this favor. Make your pledge to me for steadfast loyalty. In the translation, it's called steadfast loyalty. Please do not bury me in Egypt. Jacob wants to go back home. He wants to go back to the land of Israel. The end of his life, he brings his trusted son Joseph and he says, bury me in the land of Israel. Jacob asks for this act of steadfast loyalty. The Hebrew is chesed ve'emet. So we can say steadfast loyalty makes sense if we're translating, but that's too formal for me. Chesed, we know that word already. It can be loyalty, to be sure, but we know chesed is an act of kindness. Emet is the word for truth. chesed ve'emet is no longer kindness and truth. It's something more. There's an idiom. There's an expression that we're supposed to kind of go a little bit deeper. One of our medieval commentators, his name is Ibn Ezra, he says that chesed is, as an act of kindness, it denotes an intention to do something that is not obligated. I don't have to do this, but it's an act of kindness. I'm going to do it because I want to feel a connection. So then, what's the second half about? Emet, again, it means truth, means to give permanence to the kindness. It makes it last. An act of chesed, that act of kindness that nobody's expecting of me, I'm going to do. And emet, which means truth, is going to keep it there. It's going to make that action enduring. Chesed ve'emet. Because this kind of true kindness is so deep, this true kindness, it's so deep, and it can't be something that's reciprocated. You can't give back is the idea of this, which is why chesed ve'emet is often referred to in times of deaths. When we talk about helping people and participating as part of a Chevra Kadisha, that burial society, all of enacting the end-of-life rituals of washing and sitting with somebody who has died so that they're never alone. Those actions is an act of chesed ve'emet because the deceased can never say thank you. It's selfless. It's an act of grace, unconditional love. Jews don't use the word grace so much. Have you noticed that? Unconditional love, that's grace. Chen v'chesed, grace and kindness and emet, truth. But I don't think we need chesed ve'emet only at the end of life. I don't think it's only about the burial society and what they need to do. I think we can reclaim this true kindness, this kindness and doing for others, and to make it a permanent element of the world. I think that's how we need to act. So when you say a Misha Berach and you stand up and you call out somebody's name, and I don't know who they are, I see that as chesed ve'emet. I do. When some of you volunteer with the Chevra Kadisha, and you do sit with our deceased, the ones whom we have loved and lost, and you're present for them, saying psalms, I do think that's chesed ve'emet. When I see you go and out and protest wherever it might be on an issue of concern or protection of our planet or making sure there's justice in the world, I see that as chesed ve'emet. You're not looking for an award. We're not going to give you a badge. Maybe you get a sticker at such events. But really, it is to put kindness out in the world and try and have it endure. I think we need that, folks. Our world seems to have more and more chaos. And I think chaos is embedded in the world, which is why we're here, to provide partnership to God and continue the work of creation and try and place order in the midst of that chaos. Can't fix it all. Neither can you. But we can do our part. And chesed ve'emet can meet. They can touch. They can go together and not be separate. So maybe I'm nice sometimes, maybe I'm truthful sometimes. To make it chesed ve'emet is to rework it totally and make an act of kindness that will endure. I want to share, whenever I think of this, I think of the same story. And I know I shared this story a few years ago. It was told to me from one of my teachers. His name is Larry Kushner, Rabbi Lawrence Kushner. And Rabbi Kushner learned this from one of his students, another rabbi, Shifra Penzias. Because Shifra Penzias had a great aunt who lived in Munich. And she was in a very vulnerable position during the Holocaust. And she gets on a bus, and she is terrified and frightened and worried, and she is asked by the man sitting next to her, what's the matter? and she says, the Nazi soldiers are on the bus and they're checking everyone's papers, and I'm Jewish and I'm scared. And the man stands up on the bus and looks down at Schiffer's great aunt and says, "You stupid, foolish woman. I can't believe you did it again. How could you leave your papers home? I am tired of being married to you." A stranger. The Nazi soldiers came over and asked what was going on. And he explained, she forgot her papers at home again. This is annoying. This is terrible. The soldiers laughed and they went away. The woman didn't speak. She couldn't say anything. She didn't know who this man was, and she never saw him again. Chesed ve'emet. We don't have to save somebody's life that way, but if you do an act of courageous kindness, it will last in the world, and the story will be told for decades afterwards. Let's move to the conclusion. 586.